But I would not be remiss in calling Ron Duguay an NHL great. 860 games in the league with the Rangers, Wings, Penguins, Kings, and then bounced around the minors, where that was a lot of fun, too. Ron Duguay joins us today on video chat. I'm very interested to know. How you doing, Dukes?
I'm doing well. You had mentioned earlier about the Olympics, and I've been watching a lot of Olympics because being a Canadian, I'm rooting for all our athletes and all sports. And in fact, yesterday I was watching volleyball because I like to play beach volleyball. I go to California, play beach volleyball with my kids because they grew up playing. So now I have the tendency to watch sports that I prefer. And the Canadians are doing really well.
Yep. That doesn't surprise me at all. And as a matter of fact, I was going to ask you which sports caught your eye. I'm not surprised it would be that. I have missed that. What other sports have you noticed for Canada or any other sports?
Well, the swimming, of course, is always. I enjoy watching the swimming because it's kind of intense, right? For whatever long it takes for whatever swim it is, it's so close, so intense, and you're at the edge of your seat, and you're rooting for your Canadians. And at different categories were pretty good and others were not. But I like swimming. And then I'm looking forward to track and field.
Yeah. Hey, I got to ask you this. And I could sit and talk Olympics with you all day. I got this notification from USA Today on my phone on the weekend that America didn't have a medal in one day for the first time ever. It might have been the first day of the Olympics. It was headline news that America was shut out of medals. Can you talk about the industry that is the Olympics in America? Because in Canada, it's not that, right? Our athletes are eating out of pork and beans out of a can. It's an industry down there.
Yes, big business. Wherever there's money to be made, you're going to see money being thrown at certain things. And for the Olympics, I think the Americans want to be able to dominate. Regardless what it is. And I think the expectation also for the United States to be a powerhouse is high. And so a lot of money is thrown at it. Now, I could never understand why Canada hasn't gotten behind their athletes and helped them a little bit more. Over the years, you've always wondered that. I don't know the answer to that, but still our Canadians find a way to compete. And I think they represent themselves well.
Yeah, it is actually a sad story. Darren was just saying before you came on, or maybe you saw that there's a hole in the NHL schedule for the Olympics. Is it obviously this year, coming up? So how are you on NHL participation in the Olympics? Clearly, I love it as a fan. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you have to ask the players. And if you ask the players, I've been in a different version of playing the Olympics. I played for Canada Cup. I wear the flag on my chest. And I've done it a couple of times. Junior tournament, junior championship, I think it was in Czechoslovakia in 1976, and then Canada Cup. So I've had the privilege of being able to do that. I'm telling you, there's something different about that. Now, I've competed for the Stanley Cup. I wore the Ranger jersey. But when you compete for your country, there's something much different. And if you ask the players, they all love it. You ask the Sidney Crosby, he doesn't care. He will do it. Gretzky did it. Gretzky did it while winning Stanley Cups, right? Playing for Canada Cup. And so if you ask the players, they love it. Again, I go back to what I'd said earlier. It's business. It's money. And I'm sure the NHL wants to do it. But financially, it's got to be worth it to them. And this thing that they worry about their players getting hurt, I'm like, please, can we stop that? I mean, players can get hurt in a practice, right? And let's stop worrying about players may get hurt in a game. You know, you hear owners, well, I don't want my player to get hurt. Well, so what? Move on from that, because what you get from the entertainment value of watching your players, I think for what the exposure you give to the NHL across the world is bigger than a player or two getting hurt. That's just part of it.
Bravo. And by the way, I broadcast the World Juniors on Sportsnet radio network, and just as a broadcaster, we felt like we were representing Canada, Ron. And when the trainer threw me a Canada tracksuit, my knees started to knock. It's just a different feeling. You're right, and I appreciate it. Which Canada Cup did you play in, by the way? Was it '87, the fun one, Mario, Mike, and the gray one, or which Canada Cup was it?
No, it was in 81. We lost in the finals to the Russians. I think we got beat really bad. I think it was 8-1. Mike Liut was a net. But that team itself for me, because I was just a young man, I think I was 23. For me to make that team with all the Hall of Famers were on that team is probably my biggest achievement. But yeah, a big disappointment for me to make it. And then we lose in the finals because really we were the favorites to win, although it was really close between us and the Russians. I think Larionov was a rookie that year, and I think he scored 2 or 3 goals in that final game. But I got to play with Butch Goring and Bob Gainey as line mates on a checking line. And Scotty Bowman, of course, legendary Scotty Bowman was the coach. So I got a funny story about that, but we'll save it for another time.
Hey, Ron Duguay with us, by the way. He's the best. From Winnipeg. We got a lot of viewers in Winnipeg want to chat with you today, Dukes, which you were drafted by the Jets, correct? WHA, yeah. Tacona Powley is his name. He says, looking good, Dukes. How long have you had the short hair? I think he speaks for all of us wanting to know when you got rid of the Bon Jovi look.
I think it's almost 4 years now. I have a representation. I have an agent who will be very honest with me. About 4 years ago, he said, Ron, I'm trying to get you endorsements. And what comes back to him is that people will say, well, Ron is stuck in the 80s. He still looks like he's in the 80s. He's got an earring on. He's got long hair. And it just doesn't fit for our product. So he came to me one day. He said, Ron, listen, let's have some fun with this. We're going to do a makeover on you. So I'm like, what do you mean? Well, we're going to cut your hair. I'm like, no, you don't understand. That's just who I am. And he goes, no, we're going to do this. It's going to be fun. We're going to do it live on TV in New York on Fox. I said, really? Yeah, we're going to do the whole thing. Not only your hair, but your clothing, because what you're wearing is kind of loud. And so we did this whole thing on Fox, and I hated it at the time. But now, today, when I look back at what I look like, I'm like, what was I thinking? And so I love the short hair, and I go with the idea older, shorter. Older, shorter, meaning shorter hair if you're older. And I say the same, even so, yeah.
Short hair, don't care. By the way, my daughter said to me, Dad, you're stuck in the 80s. And I said, thank you. I took that as a compliment, Dukes. Chris Bird in Toronto says, no, Bon Jovi has the Ron Duguay look. And that's fair because you were around before John Bon Jovi, the New Jersey great. The one thing I wanted to know the most from you, Dukes, was your thought on the hiring of Gerard Gallant to take over the Rangers, because quite frankly, he wasn't on a lot of people's boards. I was a fan of Chris Knobloch, the Hartford Wolfpack coach, moving in there. But Gerard got it. What's your thoughts on where they're going with him?
Well, as you know, him and I played together in Detroit. So I got to know what he was like as a teammate, got to know what he was like as a player. And I've gotten to know him as a person off the ice. And he's from Newfoundland. He's an old school guy. He's a no-nonsense guy. And when you look at what he's done in his career as a coach, looking back as a player, he was a skilled guy and he could score goals. He was a good player. He knew how to think the game. He knew how to play the game. He knew how to play defense and offense. So then he started coaching, and he's got a pretty good coaching career. And when you look at what he did in Vegas right out of the gate, he was able to put this group of guys together that hadn't played together. He found a way to win. Now, why they let him go, I'm not quite sure. I think it's because of his way of thinking. He's not into analytics. He knows how to talk to players. He knows how to judge players. He knows how to be close and not close, keep his distance. And so I've had conversations with him in the last few years. And so I believe he's the right guy for this job because it's a young group. The big knock on this team, which I criticized all year, is that what are they thinking? This team is skilled team, young, but way too soft. When you start thinking about how are you going to win in the playoffs, right? You watch the compete level and the grit of some of these players that win. The Rangers aren't that team. And so I think, when Jim Dolan, the owner, steps in and said, look, I don't like this team. We need to make some changes. Now, he fired everyone, and that's kind of who Jim is. And I'm not sure I had a conversation with Glenn Sather because Glenn is now back. But they felt like they need to make some changes. It's not was going to win in the playoffs.
Well said. I appreciate it. And Mark Messier, nowhere around the club, which we kind of thought maybe they would. Got a viewer checking in on YouTube, Trevor Casterlin. He says, good morning from sunny Lexington, Missouri. How about that? That's a new viewer, Moose. Any questions for Ron Duguay? Fire him at us. We don't have much more time with Ron, but we do have a lot of viewers in Winnipeg on television, Dukes. So Tacona in Winnipeg says, did Ron ever wish he played in Winnipeg, possibly with the hot line of Hedberg and Nilsson? How close were you?
Well, did they have a Studio 54 in Winnipeg?
No, but they do have a Hooters, which I guess Manhattan does have a...
You know what? I would have been happy going anywhere, playing the NHL. It wasn't when I was sitting around thinking, where do I want to go play? I just want to play in the NHL. Had I gone to Winnipeg, my career might have been different. I might have lasted a little bit longer on the one team because of a lot of distractions in New York. No, every time I went to Winnipeg, I played well there. I appreciated the Canadian fans. And no, I would have been fine playing in Winnipeg, and they did have some skilled players there.
Well, you went in as a road team, so, I mean, there is only one Palomino club in the world, and it doesn't exist anymore. But I'll tell you, Manhattan didn't have a Palomino club. That was a great spot. Dan Saravelli's watching in Swift Current. Dan, the situation, Saravelli, he says, Ron, what did you think of Philly? I think he just means abroad. What did you think of Philly as a city and playing in there?
That was very difficult because I had come in the league in '77. That's after they won 2 Stanley Cups, and they won it in a certain way, which was intimidate your opponent with Dave Schultz, Kelly, you name it. Half of that team were tough guys that were wanting to hurt you when you played in Philly. And so as a rookie, and I remember my first year in training camp, we're playing against Philadelphia. Sure enough, we got Nick Fatio on the team. Sure enough, a brawl breaks out, and that lasted forever. And I can remember being paired up with Dave Hoyta, which I think Dave Hoyta might be from Winnipeg. And so you had to man up pretty quick for me. But overall, playing in Philly, it either brought the best out of you or you're going to be afraid. And for me, I saw a lot of this type of hockey in the juniors playing in Sudbury, so I was kind of accustomed to having to defend yourself, having to man up, having to play hard, and getting yourself mentally prepared to play in a difficult situation. And so it brought the best out of me. When you look at my numbers in Philly, I played really well because there was no stop and go. There was like, you're playing hard, move fast, keep your head up, and just don't let anybody try to intimidate you and try to bully you. Now, I fought a few of the tougher guys to kind of let them know that I was willing to fight. And so that kind of set the tone. And I think I got some respect that way, but it was difficult. Not only was it difficult on the ice, but it was difficult with the fans because back then the glass was really low. So they can actually, in warm-up, kind of hang over the glass. And they loved me there. They called me every name in the book. So in warm-up, I couldn't even skate near the glass. I had to stay near the center of the ice because of the abuse I took there, the mental abuse I took from fans. So, very difficult.
Every time we have you on, we get an ambush of hate from Islanders fans. I can just imagine what you got. Lee Horton says, the first time I met you, Ron, in Winnipeg, you were wearing the biggest fur coat. You rocked it. I could go on for this all day. What was the story on the fur coat? Full length?
The fur coat. Yeah, it was full length. I don't remember the type of fur, but it was the style back then. A lot of the Knick players were wearing the big hats, the big fur coats, and as Rangers, we're watching them and like, wow, that kind of looks good. So sure enough, I can't remember where we were. It might have been in Atlanta, where it was known that NHL'ers, they go there to get a discount fur coat. So a lot of us had the fur coat. Phil Esposito, I think, was the first. You look at old picture of Phil Esposito, big long fur coat. So it was kind of, I had 2 or 3 of them. So it was a style back.
Hey, last one, Ron, before I let you go. We've mentioned many times that you're in Florida. I don't need your address, but what city are you in? West Coast, East Coast, South Florida? Where are you at?
I'm right near, I'm northern part of Florida, near St. Augustine, near Jacksonville. I'm at the beaches, very quiet and quaint. And this is where I come whenever I need to kind of get grounded, because during the season I'm going 100 miles an hour, although I haven't in the last year. I just come here and I'm by the beach and I get to relax. And it's just good for me to just get away from having, when I'm on the road and working, I'm having to be me with a certain energy. When I come back here, not many people know me, so I get to relax.
All right, sounds good. Well, we'll let you get back to the relaxing. I love the visits as always, Dukes. Thanks for this. Enjoy the rest of summer.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be on the show.
NHL great Ron Duguay. Many will say the coolest man to ever play in the National Hockey League, and it's a long list. They say he's at the top.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.